folks, and welcome back to True Crime Phenomenon. This is Josh coming back with the full video of the acting Captain Lieutenant Crabb interview. Hopefully this actually gets monetized. I released it in several parts and they each were individually monetized, but the last one happened the same way and it seemed to get demonetized even after review. So YouTube, if you're listening, come on, look at my playlist, all monetized. All right, let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.
I'm Sergeant Justin Wall of the Orange County Sheriff's Office Professional Standards Section. Today's date is April the 28th, 2021, and the current time is 1:18 p.m. This interview is being conducted at the Office of Professional Standards located at 2500 West Colonial Drive. I'm interviewing. Can you state your rank and name for me?
Acting Captain Mike Crabb.
Okay. Do you prefer acting captain or lieutenant?
Both. I'm technically both.
All right. So, acting Captain Crabb, are you aware that I'm recording this interview?
Yes.
Okay. Also present in the room is Sergeant Michael Harmon of the Professional Standards Section. Has anyone threatened, coerced, or offered you any preferential treatment to give this statement?
No.
Are you under the influence of drugs or alcohol that may impair your testimony?
I am not.
All right. Can you raise your right hand so I can swear you in? Do you swear affirm the testimony you are to provide will be true and correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So as we briefly discussed, we're here to talk about an investigation that I'm working involving Sergeant Bidler and Corporal Ramsey for an incident that happened back on March 23rd, 2021. So just to start off, what was your rank and your duties on that day?
I was the acting captain for the traffic section.
And when did you become the acting captain?
That's a good question. It's middle February.
Okay, so you've been doing it for a little while.
I've been doing it for a bit, yeah.
Okay. And you are still currently the acting captain?
Yes.
Of the motor unit. Okay. On that day, was there anybody else that was working or present in Sergeant Vidler's chain of command?
Lieutenant Wacker, Cal Wacker,
okay.
Was working.
He was working that day?
He was.
Okay. Was he at the office or?
Don't know where he was.
Okay. Did you see him on that day or have discussions about this incident? Or
that's good. I believe I saw him at the office after. Once they brought Jeremy to the office, I came back. I was heading back to the office. I'm pretty sure he was there, but I'm not 100% sure on the recollection. I'm pretty sure he was there.
Okay. All right. Do you know if he was aware of the arrest?
He's the one that notified me of the arrest. So he called me and said, "Hey, just so you know, Keith just arrested Jeremy Dewitte." I asked what for, and he told me, and I said, "All right, give me a quick synopsis as soon as you can, because I'm going to need to send this up the chain." I don't know what time it was. I mean, I know Keith was still on I-4 at the time.
Okay.
Because he told me that. I said, where is he? He's on I-4. I said, he's still there. On the way to jail? No, he's still there. That's all right. Well, as soon as Keith is able to, get a synopsis and get it to me right away. I ended up going to Central Ops for something. I was on my way back to the office and realized that Cal hadn't got me that information, and we had to be running at least 30, 40 minutes now after the initial notification, so I knew once he hit the jail, I needed the chain to know before Jeremy hit the jail, so I just called Keith directly. And I said, hey, Cal was supposed to get with you, but I need this information. Actually, I texted him, I'm sorry. I texted him. And then he sent me back. We can check my phone. You guys are welcome to look at it, but we can look at it and see. We'd have to see it. I don't know if the log will go back that far. So I may have texted him, and then he called me. I believe is what happened.
With Sergeant Vidler?
With Sergeant Vidler.
Okay.
Yeah, and gave me a quick rundown. We were doing some aggressive driving on I-4, and we ran into Jeremy Dewitte. It looked like he was carrying a gun. I pulled him over and arrested him. and he said he was on his way to the office, and I was on the way to the office then. So the phone call was short, and then basically I just sent a quick text at a red light to Major Hosey that said Jeremy Dewitte arrested for CCW. More details to follow, I think, is what I told him.
Okay.
Because I knew I was heading to the office to meet up to get a few more.
So you just kind of bypassed Lieutenant Wacker, just went straight
I
to
did.
the source, get
Yep.
the information. So the first time you became aware of it was pretty much immediate, right? They were still on I-4.
Correct. Yeah.
And then subsequent to that, 30, 45 minutes later, you either text or phone call
Sergeant
and
Fiddler.
have a conversation with
Correct.
Sergeant Fiddler.
To get enough details to send up the chain.
Okay. And so what were kind of those details? I mean, what was it that he gave you?
He, on that initial phone call, he just said that it was that he was charging with CCW.
Okay.
And I didn't get any more details because he said he was heading to the office and I was heading to the office, so I was going to get the details once I got to the office.
Okay, so it was pretty brief.
It was very brief, yeah.
Okay. All right. So whenever you got to the office, did you get a more in-depth explanation?
Yeah, so they were actually in the traffic section right near my office. John, or Corporal Ramsey, and Sergeant Vidler were both there. And I believe that's where Cal was as well. I think he was standing there as well, but I just don't 100% remember. And I walked in and said, what happened? What's up? And they said they had gone to a meeting down on I Drive, and it was too early for lunch, so they decided to do some aggressive, him and Deputy Reeves decided to do some aggressive driving enforcement on I-4. So they were on I-4. He said he saw Metro State, and one of them looked like they were carrying a gun. He had the gun belt and the gun on the table in front of my office, and it definitely looked like a gun. And said he pulled him over and secured both of them, and then pulled the gun out. And I guess Jeremy's the one that told him it was a pepper ball gun. Once he pulled the magazine out, you could tell it didn't fire bullets, but it had a magazine. It didn't have any indication of it not looking like a gun. So I had some questions about CCW and the holster when you can see it. He showed me some jury instructions, and we reviewed those jury instructions, and it certainly wasn't a black and white case, but based on the jury instructions and how it read, I felt like he had PC to carry forward. So we didn't talk much more about the arrest. We talked more about the gun. And then I said, have you already taken him to jail? And he said, no. He's in the room over there being watched by a patrol deputy. And I said, all right, what are we doing with him? And Keith said, I want to interview him. And my problem is I didn't have enough background on the whole story with the Jeremy issue from before. So I thought I was helping Keith by saying, all right, so if it's you and John, I said, I don't want you to interview him. And John just had me stand there. I said, John, why don't you interview him? So I thought I was helping Keith by not having it looked biased that Keith was doing it. And in turn, I had not realized that John was heavily involved in the previous investigation. And that's, it wasn't my side of the house. As a lieutenant, I heard some of the stories about Jeremy Dewitte, but I had none of the details. So, because mine's on the other side. I have everything but motors. So, had I known more about it, and certainly hindsight's 20/20, I would have never had John do that. But I'm the one that told John to interview him. So.
Okay.
And then, that was basically details. Some phone calls with Major Hosey, back and forth, asking for case number. I reviewed Keith's body-worn camera on somebody's phone. I don't know whose phone it was, but I reviewed it right there. And I never engaged with the interview other than and it has nothing to do with anything except my internal clock. I felt like it's long enough. So I went over and told him to wrap it up. And basically, Keith was just trying to get his paperwork done. So as soon as Keith got his paperwork done, they were going to take him over. And they were going to end the interview. And he said, I'll be done in 5 minutes. So roughly 5 minutes later, he finished the interview, and they took him straight to jail.
Okay. All right. So that's kind of an overview of it, and you covered a lot of things. I just want to ask some specific questions. So you looked at the gun.
I did.
Or the pepper ball gun. So you were aware that it was a pepper ball gun, not a firearm.
Only because they told me.
Okay.
It definitely looked like a. I have pictures of it on my phone. I emailed pictures or texted pictures to Major Hosey.
Okay.
I definitely thought if I didn't know if they didn't tell me it was a pepper gun, I would have said it was a gun.
Okay.
A firearm.
So what was it about? You guys said there was discussion about the jury instruction. What was it that really? Is there anything that stood out to you that made you feel like that fit the statute of carrying a concealed weapon?
Justin, to quote it specifically, I'd have to have them in front of me.
Okay.
So it was my initial question was if it's in a holster, if you can see that it's a firearm, how is it concealed? And the jury instructions, I really don't want to go there without having it in front of me because
Okay.
it did. I just remember it talking specifically about not having to be fully concealed. So, and I'd have to have that in front of me then to answer anything more specific.
Okay.
See if I can
Yeah.
get that?
Would you mind grabbing
Yeah,
that?
not at all.
I can check. I might have it if you want me to check. Okay.
All right, so that was the discussion. Obviously, you had a question about it, and so he brought up the jury instructions, and then you guys had further discussion.
Correct.
Okay.
He described why he thought it fit, and I read the instructions, and I'm like, certainly not clear on the statute, but after reading these jury instructions, I felt like I said, certainly wasn't a black and white case where something happened right in front of you and it's saw drunk arrested same. It wasn't black and white. It
Okay.
was, but
Did you eventually concur with Sergeant Bidler's assessment of the charges?
I felt like he had probable cause
Okay.
based on the jury instructions.
All right. So based on what you knew, you believe Mr. Dewitte had committed the criminal offense of carrying a concealed weapon?
Based on what I read and understood from it, yes.
Okay. So on body-worn camera, right before Corporal Ramsey goes into the interview, there's no audio, but it's you. It looks like Sergeant Bidler, obviously Ramsey from his body-worn camera, and the gun belt is on the table.
Yep. That was in front of my office.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
is that kind of where all that discussion took place there?
Yeah, I may have ended up going into my office at some point and sitting down at my desk or something.
Okay.
Keith may have come in there or peeked his head in the door.
Okay. At one point, it looks like you guys are laughing about something. Again, there's no audio, but it was right before Corporal Ramsey goes into the interview. Do you remember what it was that you guys were laughing about or joking about, or?
No idea.
All right. But that's kind of the general area where you guys were having that conversation. It wasn't captured with audio, but
It was, so yeah, it would have been, like I said, part of it could have happened in my office.
Okay.
Because that's the entrance to my office.
Okay.
That little table is actually right in front of my door.
Okay.
Well, right next
And
to
it
my
looks
door.
like the gun, or the pepper ball gun, is actually out of the holster at one
It is.
point. Were you guys examining it or
I did.
looking at it?
Mhm.
Okay. And you said it looked like a real firearm.
Definitely looked like a real firearm.
Okay. At what point did you realize that it was a pepper ball gun?
I mean, I knew it only because Keith told me it was.
Okay.
So I didn't take the magazine out or play with it or anything like that. I just looked at it.
Okay. All right. So then you were aware, obviously, that Corporal Ramsey goes in and does the interview because you told him to do it.
Yep.
Did you stay there until the conclusion of the interview? I think you said that
Yeah,
you had told him to wrap it
I should have
up.
been in my office, yeah.
Okay, so you were there pretty much the whole time, and then you said your internal clock. What was it like? It was going on too long, or?
I don't. Like I said, I don't want to say it was too long. I just felt like we'd had him long enough. Let's get him over to the jail.
Okay. But were you present for the interview?
I was not.
Okay. Have you reviewed the interview since?
I have not.
What do we got here? Just so we can go back to it.
For convicted felon carrying concealed weapon, Florida Statute 790,
.23. I think maybe this is the portion that you're referring to. Correct me if I'm wrong, that third paragraph. Yeah, that's what I remember. You want me to read it? Yeah, sure. Okay. The term ordinary sight of another person means the casual, ordinary observation of another in the normal associations of life. A weapon need not be completely hidden for you to find that it was concealed. However, a weapon is not concealed if, although not fully exposed, its status as a weapon is detectable as ordinary observation.
Okay. So
Sounds like I stopped reading.
What did Sergeant Bidler kind of explain? Do you remember like how he or what was the context, or what was the?
It was the ordinary sight, and that it didn't need to be fully concealed. And based on reading this, I don't think I read the last sentence.
Okay. So is this what he presented to you? Are these the correct jury instructions?
It looks like the ones he actually emailed them to me.
Okay.
So I can double check that, but at that I'm 99.9% sure that those are the ones.
Okay. And yeah, this last sentence, however, a weapon is not concealed if, although not fully exposed, its status as a weapon is detectable by ordinary observation. Would
Right.
you say that a firearm in a gun belt holster is detectable as a weapon?
Yes, I would.
Are you saying you weren't familiar with that part of it at the time?
I don't remember reading that last sentence.
Okay. All right. Just while we're on that, I just wanted to be clear. So was Sergeant Vidler saying that the object itself was not visible, therefore it was concealed, or at least a portion of the firearm was not visible, therefore it was concealed? Is that the argument, or
correct?
Or that's
That was
basically
the gist of it, because
it was in a holster.
The holster covered the majority of
the object
of the
itself was not visible.
Correct.
Okay. All right. And that was what Sergeant Bidler kind of explained.
Correct.
And you concurred. Now, having read this,
I'll ask him. I don't remember seeing that in statute. I haven't read, at that point I hadn't read carrying a concealed weapon statute in forever. So
Right.
we pulled the statute up. We looked at that, and it wasn't clear in there. And then that's when he pulled this up and showed this to me.
Okay.
So, and I have to look. He highlighted it for me. Maybe the last sentence wasn't highlighted and I missed it, but I can look it up and see. But yeah, I definitely did not remember reading the last sentence.
Okay. Now, after reading this last sentence, do you feel differently?
I can see where there could be an issue with that.
Okay. Because, like you said, a firearm or any weapon in a holster that is partially visible, you would recognize it as being a firearm or a weapon, even in a holster.
Correct. Yeah, there would have been enough sticking out.
Okay.
To figure that out.
All right. Just want to make sure I covered all that. All right. So, are you? I know you said you've been acting captain since February of this year. Are you aware of an email sent from Austin Moore to Sergeant Bidler in May of 2019? That email from Austin Moore, who is one of our legal lawyers, advising that there was nothing illegal about Metro State employees openly carrying pepperball guns.
I only saw it on Jeremy Dewitte's YouTube video.
And when did
and it
you
flashed
see that?
up, so I didn't get to read it the whole time. It would have been probably the day after the arrest.
Okay.
A couple
Did you
days.
know-
It was somewhere in there. I was looking at videos, just trying to get more caught up and understand.
Did you know about this email prior to the
No.
arrest?
And the flash that came up on the YouTube video, I still haven't seen the email, but the flash that came up, what I was able to read, I think it was from a state attorney, and I believe they said they wouldn't be able to. I don't know if it said charge or take to trial, which could be different than there's they're not breaking the law. So I was only able to read part of it, so I couldn't. I'd have to see it.
Was that an email from Austin Moore, or was that?
That was. It was only up for like 10 or 15 seconds. So
Could you tell who it was from?
I believe it was from the state attorney to Austin Moore,
Okay.
or from a state attorney to Austin Moore, and I thought he or she said that carrying a pepper ball gun by, I don't even know if it talked about convicted felon or not. I'm not sure, but we would not be able to charge or take to trial or something. I thought is the gist of it, but then it cut off. So
Okay.
and I wasn't really worried about it. I mean, I just kept going on the video. I couldn't.
And you
rewind
saw
it.
that in open source YouTube
Correct. Yeah.
after the incident.
Yep.
Okay. After Corporal Ramsey's interview, was there any additional discussion about the charges?
No.
It was just,
I'm sorry. I may have asked. Did you get any? Do we have anything else from the interview? Is probably just a clarifying. Did you get anything else? We had anything or anything like that? So
okay.
they said
And
no.
what did Corporal Ramsey say?
I don't think I saw John. I think it would have been Keith.
Okay.
Yeah, would have been Keith. So, and he said no. They weren't. There was no additional.
Nothing additional.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, have you reviewed that interview?
I'm not.
Okay. Were you made aware that Mr. Dewitte made references multiple times to having an attorney present during the interview?
No.
If you were aware of that, would you have addressed it?
Certainly. Yeah.
Okay. Were you made aware that that during the interview and on the traffic stop that Mr. Dewitte claimed that he had an email from Orange County Legal saying that he was that open carry of pepper ball guns by Metro State was not illegal?
I don't know anything about the interview because I wasn't involved with that or seen the video. But I do remember hearing him say something on Sergeant Bidler's body-worn camera because I watched that day.
Okay.
And I don't know exactly what he said, but he made some mention about Austin and an email.
Okay. Did you watch that interview or watch that? When did you watch that body camera video?
That would have been right outside my office that same time we were talking while Jeremy was still at Sector 4.
So before Corporal Ramsey's interview?
Yes.
During or after?
Before.
Before Corporal Ramsey's interview?
Yes.
So you heard him make mention of it on the body-worn camera on the roadside. Mr. Dewitte saying, "I have this email."
I don't remember if he said email. I remember him referencing Austin.
Okay.
But he references the undersheriff. He references a bunch of different people. So at the time, I wouldn't have paid any attention to it. It would have had no matter in it to me because it's Jeremy, and that's partly what he does. So there would have been. I would have had no reference to worry about it. One, I didn't know anything about the email that he was even talking about, and him throwing around names. I mean, defenders do that all the time. So I wouldn't have.
Have you ever met Mr. Dewitte before this day?
No, I didn't meet him that day either.
Okay. So you've never met Mr. Dewitte?
No.
So your only knowledge is from what?
Rumors around the motor's office.
And so is that what you're basing the fact that he throws out?
Correct.
These, throws out names or statutes or whatever?
Yeah.
So when you heard that, you're saying that you didn't think anything of it because that would be a common thing for Mr. Dewitte to do based on rumors you had heard?
Yes, and furthermore, common for, defendants to throw out stuff like that
Okay.
all the time. So So I wouldn't have made a connection. I wouldn't have made a connection to it. I didn't make the connection until I saw the YouTube video, and it was just one of his random ones, and up popped this email, and I'm like, oh, that must be the email he was talking about. So that's the only connection I had, but that was days after.
Okay. So if it weren't for the previous times that you've heard about Mr. Dewitte spitting off this and that, I mean, would you have at least gone a little deeper into it? Hey, what's he talking about?
What I told you in the very beginning, if I had all the background information on this, we would have gone in a totally different direction.
Okay.
But I had not. So the answer to your question is yes. But had I had all that background information and knew what an issue he was, the whole thing would have gone differently.
Okay. So if you knew that I mean, I understand, you stop people all the time and they tell you, oh, I have a letter saying my driver's license is good, I'll find it for you. I get that.
Yeah.
But in this case, he's saying I have an email that says I'm allowed to do what you're arresting me for. So I think that's where the contention is. So you're saying if it weren't for what Jeremy had or the impression that of everybody that Jeremy had in the past, you would have questioned it a little bit more if you had known.
Once again, if I had more background on what happened previously, a lot of things would have been different.
Okay. Were you made aware by Corporal Ramsey, Sergeant Vidler, or anyone else that Mr. Dewitte had made multiple requests for a lieutenant or a captain? Actually, you made 17 requests on the traffic stop.
I heard on the body-worn camera, I heard that he requested a lieutenant, and assumed that Cal had taken care of that since Cal's the one that called me.
Okay.
So I thought that we had accommodated that.
Okay. Did you know for sure?
No.
Or that was just an assumption?
Yeah.
Because, did Sergeant Vidler ever make any mention of that, or?
No, he did not.
He's Wacker already spoke to him, or was there anything like that?
No.
So the only way you knew about it was from watching the body-worn camera? Is that
Correct.
So nobody told you, hey, he wants to speak to a lieutenant?
Correct.
Okay. And you said you did not speak to Mr. Dewitte that day?
Did not.
All right, you said you reviewed the body-worn camera video of the traffic stop involving Sergeant Vidler. So, as a manager, did you have any concerns about the stop and the whole thing? You watched the video.
Of the actual stop, I did initially just based on I-4 traffic, but I didn't realize that Reeves was basically right behind him and was kind of partially blocking that lane. So I just had some safety concerns for that lane. Other than that, I don't. I saw in the news that Jeremy was claiming that Vidler was dragging him down the road, and I don't have any recollection of that. I saw him trying to get his helmet off, but I had no recollection of, and I don't think there was any break in his video, so I don't remember seeing anything like that, because that was days later on some news interview when he was getting out of jail or something. So.
Okay. What is your knowledge of the history between Sergeant Vidler and Mr. Dewitte?
Limited. I mean, I know that Sergeant Vidler started working the way that Metro State was doing funeral escorts, which were illegal in certain circumstances. So they started enforcing that, and there's an open case in Osceola and Orange. I don't know. I know some of the charges in Orange, I think, have something to do with insurance, but I think it was more employees that were arrested for impersonating a police officer. I don't know if we ever did that with Jeremy or not. So I have very limited. I know that Captain Carpenter before before he left on medical leave, it wasn't like he didn't fill me in. He just, in casual conversation, he told me one time that that he was ordered to stop the investigation that him and Ramsey were doing, and I don't really know anything about that investigation. I'm assuming that's all the pending charges at the state attorney's office now. He'd ordered them to finish that up, and I believe they wrapped that up in the time they were supposed to.
You said it was Captain Carpenter?
Captain Carpenter. Yeah.
And when was that?
It was a casual conversation. We weren't talking about anything. I was in his office. We were talking about a bunch of stuff.
So. Months, years?
Oh no, I've only been there since September, so definitely would have been. I would probably could narrow it down to this year. Probably December, January, maybe. I would say January, probably.
There was a discussion with you and Captain Carpenter,
mm-hmm.
and he made mention that he had instructed them to conclude their investigation. Is that
correct? Yeah.
Okay. How did that come up?
I don't remember exactly. We were. I don't remember. We were just having some conversations about the section, so not sure how that came up.
Okay. Do you have any knowledge of the investigation that Sergeant Bidler was working on Mr. Dewitte? I mean, you kind of, there's a history there. How much knowledge did you have of the actual investigation?
None.
Okay.
Other than there was one.
So are you aware of Sergeant Bidler contacting insurance companies regarding Mr. Dewitte's personal or business insurance policies?
No.
So let me ask you, as being over the motor unit, is that common practice? Do you know to contact insurance companies of violators, either in traffic stops or subsequent? Later on after a traffic stop, to contact an insurance company of a violator that maybe doesn't have insurance or something. Have you ever heard of that, or is that common practice?
I would say you're talking about two different things. And once again, this is just speculation because I don't know. But if you're comparing a traffic stop to an investigation, so a traffic stop, I would say no, that wouldn't be common practice on a one-off traffic stop. But if you're doing an investigation, or you're having constant problems with the same person, I would say maybe not. It could be part of the investigation.
Okay. Do you know of anybody else that's ever done that?
Not personally, no. I don't know how I would, but no.
Okay. Are you aware of Sergeant Bidler contacting multiple private businesses that are clients of Mr. DeWitte's company? So Mr. DeWitte has a company and he has clients that use him. Are you aware of Sergeant Bidler communicating with any of those clients of Mr. DeWitte's about Mr. DeWitte's criminal history or anything like that?
No.
That never came up?
No. Is this recent, or are you talking about the previous investigation?
In the past years.
Okay.
So
all right.
I'm talking about during this investigation that is.
To clarify, just so you know, my only exposure to motors started in February.
Okay.
When I took over as acting captain.
Okay.
So.
Fair enough. And your normal responsibilities, you're over.
Evening
what?
traffic, DUI testing center, parking enforcement, red light cameras, and traffic complaints.
Okay. So a lot of other things, but not specifically over motors.
Correct.
Okay. Did Sergeant Bidler make any statements regarding his history with Mr. DeWitte in these discussions after this arrest? So just going back to this arrest, but it has to do with the history. Did Sergeant Bidler make any statements that gave you the impression that his history with Mr. DeWitte may have impacted or influenced his decision to make an arrest on that day?
I don't think so. The only rule the kind of unwritten rule that I knew about was that they were not to proactively do anything with Metro State, but if something happened in front of them, that they could engage them. So, and that's kind of where this one landed because they happened to see him on I-4.
And so you said that was that the last directive that? How do you know that? Was that a directive that was ordered by you or?
No, it was not. It was not. It was previous to me, and that probably came from Captain Carpenter as well.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so was that relayed directly to you, or are you just hearing that through the grapevine?
It's a good question. I don't know. Because we would, once again, it could have been a casual conversation with Captain Carpenter. We're talking about the section. He might throw things off of me talking about the section about improving things or something, and something comes up about somebody, and then we get off on might get off on something talking about Metro State or something, or a neighborhood that's complaining. We could go in a bunch of different directions.
Okay.
So I don't recollect. I just do know that was kind of the standing order, and then I changed that standing order to they are untouchable. So do not do any engagement whatsoever unless it's a forcible felony.
When did you?
The day after Keith was relieved.
Okay. All right.
Actually, that's not true. I'm sorry. I believe was Jeremy's arrest on a Tuesday?
It's 23rd. I don't know what day of the week. I believe it was a Tuesday.
If it was a Tuesday, then I met with the entire motors unit on Wednesday.
23rd of March was a Tuesday.
Yeah. All right. So the 24th, we had a funeral escort, and while we were waiting for the funeral, Valencia's funeral, we were out front, and I gathered all of them.
Okay. But prior to that, when Sergeant Vidler took action on the 23rd, the standing order was don't proactively seek them, but if you see them committing a crime
You can engage.
or an infraction,
Yep.
then you can engage them.
Yep. Correct.
Was there any indication from Sergeant Vidler that that's what he was seeking out Mr. Dewitte on that day?
No, he wanted to make sure it was clear that him and Jonathan, our Deputy Reeves, were on I-4, basically burning some time for lunch doing aggressive driving, and that would not be unusual. So they focus on the bigger I-4, 408, 417, 528.
Okay. Are you familiar with any ill will that Sergeant Vidler may have towards Mr. DeWitt?
Other than him not liking him being a criminal, other than that, no.
Okay. Do you have anything?
I think you covered it all.
2 full pages, I hope so.
I told you there was some questions.
Yeah, I think.
And again, I'm just trying to get a full understanding of what was taking place and
Yeah, I get it.
what was going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. Is there anything else that you know about this investigation you'd like to add at this time?
No, sir.
Okay. The current time is 1:56 p.m. and that concludes this interview.
Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and consider donating to the FOIA Relief Fund or to the Patreon. Consider being a Patreon member. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. Thanks guys.